Here's version 3 of that project I was working on. Remember, I made a calendar for every day of the year, and I had over 2,000 lines of code to manually create the HTML elements with the text areas that you can type inside of. Well, in this particular version, we are still not connecting it to the local storage yet, but I have some updates here. As you can see on the left, I've made a few changes. Right here is doc type declaration, opening HTML and closing HTML. And for this, we only have 196 lines of code. So let's look in the head. In the title, we just have January JS array to HTML table, and that's what you can see up here in the browser tab. Then we have a style, which is pretty simple. For the table, we have the border set to 4 pixels of dashed red. For the table data cells, we have the border set to 4 pixels of ridged blue and padding of 5 pixels. For the text areas, we have resize set to none and width set to 100%. I've got a couple of classes. I don't actually use this green class, so I can just take that out. Well, actually, I'm going to keep it. I might use it in my 4th version. Dot green, background color set to green. But I do have a class called BG image, which stands for background image. And so we have dot BG image, and we have two things set. We have background image set to URL, and in parentheses star.ping, and then we have repeat set to no repeat. Alright, so that's it for the CSS. Let's close this up. Now let's look at our script. Because after our script, we have our closing head, and then all we have here is body on load set to the doozer function, which is what I'm getting ready to read in the script tags, and nothing else is in the body tags and then the ending HTML tag. So the script creates everything that you see to the left. So we have function with a strange name of doozer. We've got variable creation right here. All of these variables: var, arr, short for array, body, tab, which is short for table, tr, short for table row, td for table data, cell, txa for text area, txaid for text area ID, tn for table node, row for row, col for column, and msg for message. Let's see. So let's create an array of 5 rows and 7 columns to represent January. So here we have just the simple ARR, short for array, and then in the outermost straight brackets we have another set of straight brackets for each row. So in the first row we have sun, mun, tu, wen, third, fry, set, and that's basically for this top row up here, as you can see. The next row, after your comma, the next row is enclosed in straight brackets, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's representing the second row. A comma, go down a line, and let's do the third row, and that's 7 through 13, comma. The next row in straight brackets, 14 through 20, a comma. The next row in straight brackets is 21 through 27, a comma, and the last row in straight brackets is 28 through 31, and then to maintain a consistent table we have zeros where the next month would be, but we don't care about that right now because we're only dealing with 1 month. So in the beginning we have a 0 representing December, and these zeros are representing February. Alright, close up your outermost straight bracket and end this whole statement with your semicolon. Now, in this code I've got a lot of commented out code. I did a lot of trial and error with different things I found online and where I placed my code for testing purposes. I'm going to probably not read it all, but I'm going to point it out to you so that you can copy it yourself and then uncomment it out and then comment it out just to see how it works. It'll help you to understand the code a little better. So for my first line of code, I have body equals document.getElements by tag name, and in parentheses and quotes body followed by in square brackets a 0 and then your semicolon. Next, tab equals document.createElement, and in parentheses and quotes table, close that up. Then we have our for loop, our outer for loop. So for row equals 0, row less than r.length, row plus plus, and then you have your opening curly brace here where we have one single statement, tr equals document.createElement, and parentheses and quotes tr followed by a semicolon. That's the outermost for loop. Then we have an inner for loop after that that goes from here to here. For call equals 0, call less than r index row dot length, call plus plus, and then you have your opening curly brace for this inner for loop. First statement inside of this inner for loop is td equals document.createElement, and parentheses and quotes td semicolon, and then the next statement is txa equals document.createElement, in parentheses and quotes text area semicolon. Now here I've got a comment that says show ID while looping, followed by the statement txa.id equals ARR in straight brackets row and in straight brackets call semicolon. Now here is just a comment, and if you take the double slashes off of this, you'll actually get to see it in action. Good for you to understand what's going on and when it's going on. So here there was an alert box in which we take the txa.id and concatenate it to the string in double quotes. Can I see some ID, please? This is basically letting us see an ID for every single one of our TDs that have text areas inside. It's actually IDs that are set. TXA, which is short for the text area, .id is set in the loop to each item of our array that has rows and columns. Alright, so we don't have that running right now, but put it in there for sure so that you can look at the output. Following that, we have this statement that is tn equals document.createTextNode, opening parenthesis ARR, and in straight brackets row, and in straight brackets call, close up your parentheses, and end that whole statement with semicolon. Next we have three statements. I'm going to just highlight all three. td.appendChild parentheses tn semicolon, then td.appendChild parentheses txa semicolon, and then tr.appendChild parentheses td semicolon. Alright, here is another note. This location outputs for every text area, and both of these are commented out. Go ahead and use them though. Take the comment double slashes off just so you can see how this works. We have txa.value equals txa.id, and then here's a note underneath it, puts ID inside of text area. As you can see in all these text areas, we have some things in red in certain days, and then all the rest of the text areas are blank. When you uncomment this particular line right here, inside of every text area there's going to be something. In here, these are exceptions, these are constraints that we created, but all the other ones would have, there would be a 3 in this one, there would be a 4 in this one, and so on and so forth. But once you finalize your project, you don't want to have the IDs showing inside of the text areas. So you can test it and then eventually just take it out of your code altogether, but it's good for learning purposes. Here's the if condition. We've got quite a few things going on in this if condition. The first is if txa.id double equals son. or the or symbol or two pipes, txa.id double equals mon, or txa.id double equals 2, or txa .id double equals wed, or txa.id double equals THU, short for Thursday, or the double pipe symbol txa.id double equals fry, or txa.id double equals sat. As you can probably figure out by this condition, I want to do something with these sections right here. Now, if I go back to the array, we're dealing with this first row right here, sun through sat. Okay, so if any of these are true, we have our txa.disabled set to disabled. The reason I do that line is because in all these other text areas, you want to be able to type in here, because eventually I'm going to connect all of these text areas to local storage. They're not currently connected to local storage, but they will be. Up here, under the days of the week, I have the text area filled up with a background image, and if you try to click these stars, you cannot click inside of there. So that's what the txa.disabled equals disabled does. Alright. Next, I have the txa.class name set to bg image, and what that does is these particular text areas are going to get a class which I read earlier in the style allows us to have this background image of this star, the star.ping file. And then we have txa.value set to an empty string, because if I didn't set that to an empty string, you would also see in here with the star image, you would also see sat, fry, thur, wed, to, mon, and sun right inside there, right by the star. So I don't want to do that. Alright, and this note right here goes with this expression. The txa.value equals an empty string takes sun off of image. And the same thing for all these other days of the week. Alright, the next little chunk of commented out code, which is not executing, but go ahead and type this in, take this off, and watch what happens. The first line that's commented out says txa.style.display equals none. Before I decided that I wanted to put a background image in these text areas that represent Sunday through Saturday, I decided that I didn't want to see the text area at all. So the txa.style.display equals none will take that text area off of there, but the names of the week move down in the middle of these table data cells as if the text areas weren't there at all. So it doesn't hold a space for them. Another way that you could do it is this line of code, txa.style.visibility equals hidden. When you have visibility set to hidden, you can't actually see the text area, but the SAT will not move down in the center of this table data cell. It will hold the space as if this is here. You won't see the text area at all, but SAT won't move. Whereas in this one right here, txa.style.display set to none means that it's as if it does not hold the space for the text area, and so SAT will move down. Alright, and here is our ending if on line 93, our ending if, which starts right here. Alright, so that's only dealing with these elements. Now, here's the end of this if, and we have another if starting on line 95, another condition, another constraint. If txa.id is set to 1, if it's equal to 1, we're talking about this right here. this particular text area. Has the ID of 1. It's the only one in this whole table that has that value of 1. So we are only going to make a change to that particular thing. And these are the changes that I actually made in between the curly braces. I have txa.value equals the string blueberry. As you can see, it says blueberry in there. I also set the style to red. txa.style.color equals red in double quotes. And I had set the font size to a larger size with txa.style.font size equals 12 pt in double quotes. But I commented that out because I decided I wanted to keep everything the same size. What it did was it wound up making the text area higher in only these table data cells, and I didn't like that. I want all my text areas to have a uniform height. So that's why I commented that out. Okay, so there's this and this condition. Now let's look at another condition right here. If, in parentheses, txa.id is double equals 1. Oh no, I'm sorry, I just read that one. Oh, this is weird. I've got two of the exact same thing. That makes no sense at all. I don't know how I did that. Well, let's just make a change right here in front of you. Let's change this txa.id to 5. Then we're going to set the value to roses. txa.style.color equals, we can actually change the color if we want. Let's change it to blue. And if we want, just to show you what this font size 12 point looks like, we'll do that. So here, with this condition, with the text area ID set to 5, we want to give the value of roses, the color to be blue, and this font size to be 12 point. So let's go on ahead and refresh this and refresh this. And so now you can see roses, the font's a little bit larger than all the other. And you also see how this text area now has more of a height than all the rest of them around it, which looks like ugly. So I'm going to go ahead and comment that back off. Alright, so with that constraint we have this. Alright, let's look at the next constraint. If txa.id is set to 10, if it's equal to 10, then the txa.value will be set to pink grapefruit. The txa.style.color is set to red. And again, I didn't change the font size here. And then the end if, as you can see right there. Let's look at another constraint. If, in parentheses, txa.id is equal to 19, then in the curly braces we have txa.value equals green grape, txa.style.color equals red, and that's it. The next constraint, if txa.id equals 22, then the txa.value equals red apple, the txa.style.color equals red, end if. We're ending curly brace. And finally, the last constraint that I set, if txa.id is equal to 31, then the txa.value will be set to purple plum, txa.style.color equals red, and that's it. So for each of these individual constraints, you can give it a different color, you could give it a different value, you can give it a different font size. There's just anything that you want to style in there to make it unique, you can. You don't want to make it too unique though, because then you're not going to have a nice looking page. It's going to look kind of crazy. So there's all the if conditions. Here at line 132 is the end of the inner for loop. Now since this is the end of the inner for loop, anything after that, anything between this closing curly brace and this closing curly brace is in between the inner loop and the outer loop. So we have a single statement here, which is tab.append child parentheses tr semicolon. Alright, here we've got a comment with a couple of statements that are commented out for you to try at your leisure. This location outputs last text area per row. So any changes made here, each row, it's only going to make a change for Saturday, for the column, Saturday, for the very last text area for every single row. And you might want to do something special for that, or you might not, but that's where you would put it. It's important to understand the location of your code in between for loops, before them and after them, what it does to what particular element you're dealing with. The only thing that we care about that we didn't comment out is this tab.append child parentheses tr for the table rows. Alright, so we'll close up the outer for. So now we're done with both nested for loops. Now we have this important body.append child parentheses tab semicolon. Now a whole bunch of commented out stuff that I'm not using. I had an alert box that popped up and it had the text row 1 equals, and then you concatenated the value of ARR straight brackets 0, and what that did is it gave you in the alert box what the first row was. Then we had another alert box, alert, and in parentheses we have the string 6th index of first row equals, and then we concatenate the value of ARR straight bracket 0 straight bracket 6 and that gave us the 6th index of the first row. The next alert that you can try out to see how it works is this alert that says this string in double quotes index 0 is the first item of first row equals, and then we concatenate the value of ARR straight bracket 0 straight bracket 0, and that gives us the data for the first row first item. Alright, I guess I could have commented this out too because I didn't even use my alert message, but I started off with a variable MSG set to an empty string, and then I took MSG and using the plus equals I tacked on the value of the array, the whole array from top to bottom. Then I used my alert pop-up to spit that value out, so alert in parentheses MSG, and that gave us the whole array. Alright, so technically I can just comment that whole situation out. It's not going to change the output that I'm getting right now. Okay, the next set of comments, get an array column instead of a row. Remember, indices start with 0. So it's kind of nice to know how to grab an individual table data cell element, or how to grab an entire row, or how to grab an entire column. So this is how you're going to get an entire column. Var get column 2 equals the name of the array, which is ARR, r.map opening parenthesis function, in parentheses we have value comma index, and then in the curly braces we have return value straight brackets 2 semicolon closing curly brace closing parenthesis and ending semicolon for that whole statement. So what we're going to do after that is we're going to let our alert box in parentheses we have the string column 2 equals plus whatever the value of get column 2 is. So basically 0, 1, 2. It's going to give you 2, 9, 16, 23, and 30. Alright, the next alert I had was this one. Alert in parentheses r.length plus the string is the length of each row, a \n so that we go down to a new line. It spans columns 0 through 6. All right, another comment, my experimenting. So, commented out, TXA ID equals document.getElements by tag name and in parentheses and quotes text area dot length, followed by an alert so that you could see that in parentheses and double quotes. Text area length is equal, and then we concatenate TXA ID. What happens in the alert box right here, it pops up an alert box with the number 42 in it, and that gives us the length, because each one of these text areas we have rows of 7, so we have a row with 7 columns. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 7 is 42. That's how you get that. All right, we're almost done. A comment that says alert and in parentheses document.doctype, just so you can see what that actually shows you. Alert, parentheses document.body. Not needed, just something to give me the feel for the DOM. Alert, parentheses, the name of the array, which is R. The straight brackets 0 means we're talking about the top row, and the straight bracket 0 after that means it's the first item of the top row. Dot ID, and the output for this was undefined, so I obviously wasn't understanding why I had an undefined ID for this. It should have had a 0. I would have thought that this particular part, oh wait, you know what? R00 would be this one, the Sunday. So that ID, I would have thought, what maybe would have given me 0. I'm not sure. I thought I would have seen this ARR00. I don't know, but whatever, it says undefined. Okay, another little comment. Some conditionals, these test all conditions for truth. Alright, none of this is necessary. Actually, I came up with this if conditions before I ended up with these ifs. And so you move back and forth in your code a lot when you're learning. But my first condition was if, in parentheses, R00 equals sun, then my alert box was going to have the string yes plus the value of R00. So we were going to see alert box pop up and say yes, because this particular position in the array does actually have the value of sun, the ID, or actually the value of sun. And the next one was if R01 equals mon, so the 0 is the first row, 1 is actually the not the 0th index, but the first index of that row, which would give us this mon. We were going to get another alert box that says yes plus the value of R01, which would be mon. And I did it again for good measure if R10 equals 0, or R10 would be this. This is the 0 row, this is the 1 row. So if 10 equals 0, which this one does, or now we go all the way down here, this was the 0 row, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the very last one is 5. The 28th would be the 0th index of the 5th one. So 5, this would be 5, 0. This would be 5, 1. This would be 5, 2, 5, 3. Now here at 5, 4, if 5, 4 has a value of 0, 5, 5 equals 0, or 5, 6 equals 0. So basically what I'm showing you is all of the text areas that do not belong to January. They belong to December before, the December before, or the February after. They all have 0 values. So if all of these, any of these, because we're using the OR symbols, the pipe in between, if this or this or this or this, then we had an alert box that said you matched 0 values, which is nothing other than showing me what's happening where in my code. Then we had an else statement that meant all of these other things that I didn't set a value to. We had an alert that said shitballs, no match. Okay, sometimes you do stupid stuff to keep yourself entertained because coding could become boring and hectic. So yeah, sometimes you do something stupid like that. Alright, so anyway, there's the else that I'm not even using any of that. Again, you do dumb stuff like this just to feel your way through your code. So technically, all of these conditionals could be commented out. So I'll use this multi-line comment, the / asterisk, and I'll just go all the way down to that ending else, asterisk / I don't want to comment out my ending function curly brace, or then I'll screw up all my code and then I'll be really pissed. So I don't want to do that. So you got to make sure when you comment stuff out that you do that properly as well. Alright, so there's the end of the function, the end of the script, the end of the head. And then all we have for the body is onload set to this function doozer, and I just read the whole thing, doozer, ending body tag, ending HTML. Alright, so I got the feel for creating this table completely by using JavaScript, and on my next version I will hopefully be able to throw in my local storage and utilize. I'll have to put a button up here somewhere so that when you click the button, anything that you type in here, because all of this blueberry, roses, pink grapefruit, green grape, red apple, and what was the other thing, purple plum, all of that stuff is hard coded in the JavaScript. That's not my final production. My final production is I can have some things hard coded in here if I want, but ultimately I want the user, the end user, to be able to type stuff in here and then hit the button to have local storage save it. So that's the ultimate plan. Alright, I'm going to stop for now. This was longer than I wanted it to be.